Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Sacred Tarot by Nicole. I'm very excited to have you back. And I just want to mention we also have my psychic sidekick, Cali, here. She's very excited. No, she's actually quite sleepy because it's quite early right now. So she's going to be in the first couple minutes of the video, and then we'll let her go back to sleep. All right, so today everyone, I want to talk about spiritual awakening from trauma. Now, you can have a spiritual awakening without trauma, but today I want to focus on spiritual awakenings with trauma. Sorry, I just want to mention I do say trauma kind of funny. It's my prairie girl accent because I am from the center of Canada. So the way I say trauma is a little bit funny, so bear with me with my pronunciation. So trauma can come in many forms. It can come in the form of like a car accident, any accident, illness, divorce, separation from a loved one, so like ending a relationship, even sometimes moving. It can be a culture shock for some people. And so you ask maybe why Cali's here today, my psychic sidekick. Oh, Cali. Well, I believe Cali has had a spiritual awakening through trauma. So we rescued her from California. So a rescue here in Squamish, BC, called Positive Animal Rescue, brought her over the border when she was 4 months old. They found her on the streets in Southern California. So she probably did have some trauma, but we don't really know what she went through, or even if she did have any trauma. But even just being on the streets was probably pretty traumatic for her. And I really believe that she had a spiritual awakening. She's a very spiritual dog. She's very in tune with her surroundings. She's very intelligent. I just feel like she can just sense. And a lot of animals, dogs and cats especially, have this sense when someone is in pain, or like another animal is in pain or suffering. They just have this sense. And you know, when they come to cuddle up with you when you're not feeling well or you're really upset about something, they just have this sense, which I believe they're very spiritual. She is such a special dog. I really believe that she feels deeply. She's quite in tune with her emotions, and she is also a registered therapy dog. I registered her through the St. John Ambulance, so she has her certification to be a therapy dog. So she goes to senior homes, long-term care facilities. She brings love and joy to the residents of the care homes, and she does such a good job because she's such a good girl. I love you. Okay, now you can go. Cali gets a little bit restless. All right, everyone, so Cali went back to bed. She was getting a little bit sleepy and a little restless. It's hard for her to stay in one spot for too long, so she went back to bed, so she'll no longer be in the video. It was nice having our psychic sidekick along for the ride for the first couple minutes of the video. Now, I just want to mention, with the conversations I'll be having in this video, I am not a medical professional. I have not studied spiritual awakenings through trauma on a professional level, but I want to have a conversation today about my experiences and the experiences that I have discovered with my findings and my research on my own. So again, I'm not a medical professional. I just want to make sure we get that out of the way. I also want to mention that we are moving, so we will not have this table here anymore. It's interesting. I don't know if you noticed that. I talked in my last video about the fact that I'm sitting on the floor. So we'll no longer have this set up, and we're going to be in a completely different atmosphere. We're going to be moving across Canada. So like I said, trauma can come in many forms. It's pretty much anything that puts stress on the mind, body, or soul. All right, and I just want to mention, if you want to share your experience with spiritual awakening with trauma or without trauma in the comments below, please feel free to do so. Now, I want to talk a little bit about my experiences with spiritual awakening through trauma. I have quite a few interesting times in my life where I felt like I had quite a bit of trauma. I had a really big spiritual awakening when I was 15, and I really didn't understand it at that age because it was a hard time. I had just started high school, so I was about a year into high school. So in the summer, I had a massive car accident where I had a brain injury. I was put into an induced coma. Now, this was really hard going through high school. Just going through high school is hard enough. It can already be a traumatic experience, but then you throw in a car accident where you are dealing with a brain injury and trying to recover from that. And luckily, I had it at 15, because I feel like if I had it at 25, I wouldn't have recovered as good, because the brain, there's been studies showing that the brain stops growing at 25. So because I had it at 15, I feel like I had a little more flexibility with my recovery. So it did take me 5 full years to recover, but I did graduate high school and I graduated college in that time. So I felt like I was doing something right. I was almost like I was using my brain more. I felt like I became more active with my brain after that accident. Now, there's a couple other situations I want to bring up. I do have a severe medical condition. My blood doesn't clot. So it's called von Willebrand's disease type 2B. A lot of people understand it when I say, oh, I have hemophilia, because they understand what hemophilia is. So I feel like already right off the bat when I was born, I actually came out of my mom. Sounds weird. When I was born, my skin was actually peeling and I was bleeding because I was in there for too long. I was about a week and a half overdue. So right away they knew I had the blood condition. I have 3 older brothers. None of them got the blood condition. I happened to get it, but it can be a 50-50 chance of getting it because it's an inherited blood condition, and I got it from my father. There was lots of substance abuse within my family. I feel like that was a hard thing to grow up with as well. I have some interesting stories. Maybe I'll talk about it in a later date, but because they can be quite painful to get into. I was also in and out of women's shelters growing up within I feel like my preteen years, or about to get into my preteen years, and that was quite traumatic. I spent two Christmases at a women's shelter, and that was hard, not being home for that and trying to maybe kind of hide that from people I went to school with, because it was something that I didn't want people to really know or about me. And so these were very traumatic experiences. I was also in a car accident when I was 9 years old. And this wasn't as bad as the one I had when I was 15, but it was a drinking and driving accident with a family member where it could have went really bad, but it didn't. Luckily, I came out scratch-free, but it was very, very terrifying for me. It was a family member that I really trusted too, and it was drinking and driving, so they put my life in their hands, and it could have been gone in a blink of an eye. So that was another traumatic experience. I also had my parents got divorced when I was about 10 years old. That was another traumatic experience. And this is one that a lot of people can resonate with. And a lot of people have spiritual awakenings with trauma through divorce. There is some positivity that comes out of these kind of situations. And spiritual awakenings are wonderful. They're amazing. And it's just such an amazing state to get to. Well, there are stages that you have to go through, and that's what I want to talk about. So before I get into the stages, I want to talk to in my 20s and early 30s, I had quite a few knee surgeries as well. And I had one surgery go horribly wrong, and it didn't get fixed for 6 years. So there was a lot of trauma. I fell and I got back up, and I fell and I got back up so many times in my life. And I didn't handle things always the most appropriate way. There was a lot of drinking in my early 20s, and there was a lot of partying. There was a lot of trying to numb all the pain I was going through, and trying to understand what was really going on with me with the spiritual awakening, with trauma, was very, very difficult. And it was not linear. It was not a straight line. It took a very long time. There was a lot of falling and going back into stages. I would go back to stage 1 so many times, and then I'd go back into like stage 6, and then I feel like I never really got to stage 6 until my most recent present time. And it's an amazing feeling, and that had a lot to do with how unhappy I was with my career. And then that was with serving. I feel like it was something that served me for a really long time for a really good purpose. Like I loved the job. It was fun. It was exciting. It was a great time in my life that I was social. I had amazing friends. It was like, but it was such a young job. Like it was a time when I reached my 35th birthday last year, I realized I needed a big shift. I needed a big shift in my life. And here I am. I've shifted, and I am no longer in the service industry, and I feel like I could finally get to that stage 6. So I do talk about stages, and I believe there's about 6 stages. Now, in all my research and my findings, there's a lot of people, even professionals, that will say there could be anywhere from 4 to 11 to 12 different stages of the spiritual awakening stages. I really resonate with the 6 stages. They just really speak to me. I feel like there's just, for me, myself, my experience, I feel like there was 6 stages that I went through. And it could be different for someone else, but I just want to go through the stages on how I went through them, because, and again, it's not linear, but I'll go with them in order. But you can find yourself, oh, I'm in 4, but then you jump back to 1 sometimes, and you're like, what happened? And it could take years sometimes to be in these stages and to get through to the next one. And sometimes in your life you realize, like, wow, I've been stuck in stage 4 for so long, or stage 2 or whatever, but that's fine. And this is how, like, you're growing your path. But it's really nice to see what the stages are and what you can attain in a lifetime. And being spiritually awoke is a wonderful, wonderful thing. All right, so I want to go through the 6 stages. So stage 1 is the wake up stage. So stage 1, you may feel like you're in a lot of chaos, or there could be some confusion and like confusing times, or something has happened to you and feel like, why did this happen to me? You feel like you're kind of you're the victim in this, and you're like, you don't understand and you're confused. I had this when I had my car accident. I didn't understand why I got injured in the car when no one else did. And it was a very, very intense car accident. We flipped upside down. I was pinned in there. I was stuck in there. They had to get the jaws of life to get me out. I was knocked unconscious. Or sorry, I had a concussion, but I was put into a coma, like an induced coma. And I just didn't understand, why me? Why not anyone else in the car? There was 3 other people in the car, and they just came out with a couple scratches and barely nothing wrong. And I just feel like these things were meant to be. It was a really interesting car accident too. We landed on this churchyard, like the ditch of a churchyard. We flew off a driveway in the ditch and went 20 feet in the air and landed upside down. And when we landed on this, I don't remember any of the accident. So this is all things I've been told. And I feel like it was just such an awakening for me. It was like, I woke up, I was like, why is this happening? And then you at those times, I was just feeling like, wow, life can be really short. Like 15 years old, I'm only going to live 15 years of my life. So I knew things needed to change. I needed to go in a different direction in life. And believe me, it didn't happen right away. I was very immature about things. And being in high school, I just wanted to be normal again. I just wanted to go to parties like my friends, but I had to have babysitters, and I was leaving things on. I had short-term memory loss. I was confused about people's names. I didn't really know who people were anymore, and then I was trying to keep up with everybody, and it really wasn't working for me. So anyways, that was stage 1 for me, and can kind of give you an idea of the confusion you go around, and like the confusion you go through, and the feeling of like a victim, like, why did that happen to me and no one else? Well, those are answers that you can only get when you go through the stages and you realize that there's something positive that comes out of this. And believe me, it took me a long time, in and out. And sometimes I was stuck in that stage for years. And I went back. I fell, I got back up, and I went back to that stage many times with different traumatic experiences in my life. Now, stage 2 is about bliss. You're feeling bliss and joy and fulfillment. So you discover maybe spiritual gifts that you have. So I discovered tarot cards around 15 years old. So right after that was when I got gifted my first tarot deck that I still use for my readings. I'll be using for some of my pick a card readings on here too. So that was that's a good stage, like being blissful, but you're not grounded yet. You haven't put your roots down. You're just feeling like, okay, I've gotten over the point of feeling like the victim, like feeling the world is against me. So you haven't grounded your energy yet. So stage 2 is a really nice stage, and that's why people kind of stay there for a really long time and don't really take anything from their spiritual awakening through trauma. They'll stay there because it feels good. Now, stage 3 is all about leaving the old person behind and accepting the new. Now, stage 3 is a dark time. This is a time where you go within and you work on strengthening your connection with your higher self. And again, like grounding, you want to ground. And this can be a really uncomfortable time. It's a time where your soul brings light to everything that needs to be healed. So you're not quite going through the healing process yet, but you're going into it. This is maybe a stage that I went through a lot in high school, where there were a lot of dark times where I didn't understand. And I was just trying to be a kid still. When you're 15 years old, you just want to be a kid and you want to be normal. I also had a blood condition. So when I bled in my brain from that car accident, from my brain injury, because I got hit on this side because I was a passenger, that terrifying feeling, especially for my mother getting that phone call, your daughter's been in a car accident and has hit her head, and a brain bleed can kill someone with von Willebrand's disease, like within hours. It's how my grandfather passed away when he was 48 years old. He got punched in the head in a bar fight and bled overnight and died. He didn't have medicine back then like we do now. I'm just so grateful for the our Medicare system and having medicine and living in this time, in this era of having access to this medicine. So back to that. So the darkness that I went through, there was so much healing that I knew needed to happen, but it wasn't like, I wasn't ready to face it then. And I wasn't even ready to face it in my early 20s. It took years for me to get there. It took me almost till my 30s to really get through this dark time. And I feel like I've gone back to this so many times to go back to healing. Now, stage 4 is when you're in between that old self and your new self. So you've done quite a bit of the healing, but you're in this void now. You feel like you're in a void and you're trying to figure out how to maintain the new life, because you're becoming a different person. You're evolving, we're always evolving, we're always learning, we're always changing, which is good, but accepting it and understanding that it is necessary. And this stage can be really uncomfortable. So 3 and 4 of it can be very uncomfortable stages, because you're really understanding the trauma that you've endured in your life, and you're having to accept it and move on from it and take some positivity from it, which can be very, very hard, especially depending on what kind of trauma it is. So in stage 4, you can feel lost, but it is a time to rest and reflect. Now, stage 5 is groundness. So you're putting roots into the earth. You're like a tree, and you're starting to put those roots into the earth and really deep. And you're like, I'm grounded now. I've worked through the trauma. I've gone through the healing. You're going through the process. You're going through the process still, because you're not quite at stage 6 yet. But you've peeled back that onion. You've gone through the painful times, looking within and understanding what needs to be healed. You're coming back into the world. So 3 and 4 were all about introverting and looking within for the healing and working through everything in the dark time. But coming back into the world, it's brighter. It's starting to get brighter, and you're putting those roots down. For me, I want to say, I still actually, I said that I got to stage 6, but the more and more I think about it, the more and more I've still been bouncing back and forth from 2 to 3 to 4. So much throughout my lifetime. And stage 5, I feel like I have put some roots down, but they're getting dug up right now because I am moving across the country. So stage 6, I feel like it's going to be very soon for me, but I have so much unknown right now in my future, and as all of us do right now. So going through these stages is really important for us in this time in our world. And as a server, I had a really hard time because I was always on stage. I was always performing. And when you're in such a social situation for your job, it's so hard to go into that dark state. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to go into a dark state. You're not allowed to go into an introverted state. So I got stuck in that blissful state, and I had to be happy, had to be joyful, had to always feel fulfilled, and I had to go to work with a big smile on my face. And I don't even, people used to come to me, but why don't you smile more? No, nobody likes hearing that. So there was times I was deeply, deeply unhappy, and now that I'm out of that, I feel like I've definitely gotten to stage 5. And just more grounded in my relationship, my friendships. And even though I'm not going to see my friends face to face for a while, the connections I've made, I've put those roots down with them and with everything around me. Anyways, okay, stage 6. Spiritually awoke. So stage 6 is about being spiritually awoke. You've put those roots down. They're deep now. You've purged. You've let go of your old self and accepted the new. And you're almost like a completely different person. But you're going through the motions of evolving and learning and growing and understanding that this will happen for the rest of your life. And accepting this about you. You walk with a deeper purpose. You remember why you're here and what your purpose is. And you remember to love unconditionally. yourself and others. And you're always growing, and you can continue to reach stage 6 throughout your lifetime. But again, like I said, there's falling, there's getting back up, there's falling, there's getting back up. Life is not linear. You can jump into different stages and stay there for a really long time, and obtaining stage 6 can be really, really difficult for a lot of people. Going through the pain, you have to go through the 3 and 4, looking within and being okay with yourself, and understanding that this takes a lot of work and a lot of work to get through these stages. And spiritual awakening with trauma is a very beautiful thing, and spiritual awakening itself is a very, very wonderful thing for people. And I recommend people that are interested in reading more about the 6 stages. Now, I've kind of lightly gone over them, and if you want to learn more, there's a lot of information about this out there, which is great, and we have just so much access now to information about this. Now, trauma can ignite an awakening, and you don't even realize it when it could be happening. Becoming aware of it is part of the process. And little things to look out for, having that feeling of connection with trees. Some people even say that the plants talk to them, or animals talk to them. You just have this new sense of connection. I felt it with my dog Cali, my psychic sidekick. I felt like the connection I have with her is something that I've never experienced before. I've had animals growing up, but it is different when it's your own animal. But with her, this connection I have with her is so powerful. And a lot of people say when they're going through spiritual awakenings will say that, the connection with plants, with the earth, with the grounding, like the grounding, earth is part of the grounding process, putting the roots into the earth. So it's no wonder that you'll have a new sense of connectedness with plants, animals, your surroundings, and people around you, relationships, just a deeper and better understanding, and a better understanding of who you are and the connection you have with your higher self. All right, thank you everyone. So that's the 6 stages of spiritual awakening with trauma. All right, I did mention earlier in the video, if you do want to share your experience with spiritual awakening with trauma or without trauma, please feel free to do so in the comment box below and share your experience. I would love to hear from you. I really hope you liked this video. So if you did, give me a thumbs up, or click subscribe to see other videos that will be coming out. I'm very excited about this journey. Thank you very much.